Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Gretchen, and today I am back with another Women's Prize for Nonfiction review, and today is the long-listed title, Matrescence, on pregnancy, childbirth, and motherhood. So this is one of the last couple books that I have to read for the Women's Prize for Nonfiction. This was a book that I wanted to get to sooner, but it was not a book that was available to me in the States yet, and it's only recently become available. But prior to that, Pantheon so kindly sent me this finished copy, so I wanted to take a second to just say thank you before getting into the review, because sometimes when we have these prizes where the books aren't available to us, but we obviously want to read them and participate, it can be difficult. So I wanted to make sure that I thank Pantheon because they were able to help me get it a little earlier than I could have in the States. So now let's get into the review. Now, this book sets out to explore that transition of becoming a mother for a woman. And Lucy Jones does an absolute amazing job of taking each of those phases, pregnancy, childbirth, and motherhood, and talks not only about the act of being a mother and having this human life developing inside you and then it coming out and having to take care of it. She talks about all of the things that actually happen with the body and the mind and all of the things that are so widely ignored and misunderstood, and often things that women get shunned for during all of those phases. And it is such a unique book, and it was such an eye-opening book for me. And this is a book that I think, even though it is about a woman's body, that every single person could benefit from reading this, whether you are a man or a woman. For a woman to read a book like this, it's a book that they're going to find empathy and validation and understanding in. And for a man to read this, it's going to give them information to help them be there for the women in their lives and understand that all of the things that they think are just crazy women things, that there's truly a science behind them and there's a reason, and give them the empathy that they need to help support the women in their lives. I think that knowing all of these things is just going to benefit so many people, if both the women that are going through this, but also the men that are there for them, better understand everything that's happening so that they can better respond to it. And I think that Lucy Jones did an amazing job of writing this book. She takes her personal experience. So I believe she has, I want to say 3 children, and she talks about her experience with her personal journey with having children and how that has impacted her. And she also did it with vulnerability. She talked about a lot of things that were very personal and was probably, pretty vulnerable for her to own up to. And I always appreciate when you get kind of that brutal honesty. The things that go on in your life, especially in this situation with her matrescence, or that process of becoming a mother, she had a lot of experiences, and to be honest and raw and upfront about how those experiences impacted her, and not only impacted her but the people around her, I think was really important, and she did a really good job of this. The writing was spot on as well. There's a lot of science in this book, and I know that sometimes for certain readers that can be off-putting when a book focuses on science because it can tend to be dry and boring. But I think that Jones did a really good job of making all of the presentation of that scientific information very digestible, and for women she made it very relatable and understandable. My biggest kind of trepidation going into this book was, I'm not a mother. I have never experienced matrescence, and when I walked into it I was a little apprehensive because I wasn't sure if I would be able to understand or relate to a book like this. I felt like sometimes I read books like this and it's like the author is only talking to mothers. And in this instance, the author was talking to everyone. She wasn't isolating the audience. She was telling everybody what was happening. And although the information is most relatable to a mother, the way that this was presented was in a way for everybody to digest the information. And I really appreciated that, because sometimes when I read books like this, if it's a book that doesn't pertain to me, I sometimes feel like I am lost or not a part of the conversation. I have several friends that have become mothers, and sometimes listening to them talk to each other about motherhood, it makes me feel left out and like I can't contribute anything to the conversation because I don't have that lived experience. And it can be kind of isolating sometimes, thinking that, oh, I'm just not the target audience for this conversation. But with this, I really felt like she was directing the information to everybody and no one was left out, and we all got the facts. And then of course the mothers that were reading this are going to relate to it more, but we are also, the non-mothers, able to understand what is happening in the woman's body and in the woman's brain and their life at the time to help make that transition for them easier. So I really appreciated that there was so much detail and care put into the narrative of this piece of nonfiction. I know that, you know, narrative it tends to be for novels, but the writing of this book tended to definitely be inclusive, and anybody could pick up this book and learn something from it, not just a mom. So yeah, I definitely understand the merits of this book and why it was highlighted by the Women's Prize for Nonfiction. I'm actually a little surprised that it wasn't shortlisted. This is a book that I think is kind of quintessential womanhood, and I think that it represents so much of what it means to be a woman, and I do feel like it could definitely have stood on its own in the shortlist, but sadly it didn't make it. But don't let that prevent you from picking a book like this up. I definitely appreciate what this book did, and if it's a subject that you are at all interested in, I highly recommend picking it up. You're gonna learn a lot, and it's one of those books that that just makes you want to go and give every mother that you come across a hug, and you learn everything that they truly go through. And I know that oftentimes we, as a society, and I say as a society, meaning here in the States, we kind of brush a lot of things off. Like, for example, I've heard so many people say or use the term, oh, she has baby brain, and they use it as almost like a slam. They use it as an insult, and meanwhile there is science behind it, and there is an absolute logical reason why that happens. And instead of minimizing that woman for having something that is completely natural happen to her, learn about it and what is actually happening, and maybe will be a little kinder the next time we run across a mom that's maybe having a little bit of forgetfulness, or, you know, she's a little scatterbrained. So I think everybody is going to get something out of this book, regardless of whether or not you have birthed a child. And I think this was a great book, and the level of care and time and research that Jones put into this book is very evident, and I appreciate that she was able to write a book like this and bring it to the general audience so that we can all better understand what it's like to not only be a mom, but that process of becoming a mother from conception to birth and beyond. This is one of the last books that I have to read for the Women's Prize for Nonfiction. I have finished the short list. I think the only books that I have yet to finish are the Britannias and Shadow of Noon and Intervals. But as I get through those books, even though the prize will be over, I'll still put out single video reviews for each of those in case you're interested in reading any of those books. And until we read again, bye.